Here's my review of some of the most popular sketchbooks and which one's my favorite. When it comes to what sketchbook or notebook to use, there are of course a ton of different options out there. It really comes down to personal preference, but I think there's a few common things that everyone wants to take into consideration, such as how big it is and what the paper quality is like. To me, I think the most important thing is just to find one that you really like to use so that you stay motivated to draw in it, but at the same time aren't so precious about it that you don't want to draw in it because you don't want to mess it up. So I've collected a few of the most popular options here to show you and to give you something to consider. Here's the Moleskine 5.5 by 8.5 inch art sketchbook, the Leuchtturm dotted notebook in 6 by 8.25 inches, and the Rhodia dotted softcover notebook in 6 by 8.25 inches as well. These three aren't as popular, but I wanted to show you some other options. There's this Render No Show-Through paper notebook, this Fringe Studio notebook that has 4 different kinds of paper inside, and the Stillman Birn toned notebook in 8 by 10 inches. So with the Moleskine, the pages of the art sketchbook are pretty thick and smooth. For Moleskine, be careful not to confuse the art sketchbook with their regular notebooks. The paper on those are much thinner these days, and I don't recommend them for this purpose. I'm not a huge fan of the half-page aspect ratio. I really find that I prefer the 6 by 8.25 or 8 by 10 inches more. With this Leuchtturm notebook, the cover is a similar hardcover to the Moleskine, but the interior pages are a bit thinner. While I do prefer dotted paper to blank paper these days, I also like it when the dots are very thin and very light. These are a bit too distracting in my opinion, and with the thinner pages, it's not a go. With this Rhodia notebook, it's a nice ivory colored paper and is actually brushed vellum, so it takes my brush pens a little better than the Leuchtturm. I like the dots a bit more on this design too. While this one's a soft cover, it feels sturdy and like it would survive in my bag. That's not true of all softcover notebooks out there. For example, I don't carry my Fringe notebook out in a bag because I feel like it get damaged too easily. Speaking of the Fringe notebook, I really like the size and the paper quality is pretty decent. I also liked having 4 different kinds of paper to try. A gray lined sheet, a yellow grid sheet, a white dotted sheet, and a blank pink sheet. I found that I really like drawing on the gray paper instead of the white paper. The tone color allows the white jelly roll to really pop. While I never liked lined paper in the past, this one's actually pretty close enough to the paper color that I didn't mind them, and I actually think it adds some interest to my sketches. Unfortunately, they don't sell a notebook with only gray paper, so this one's not a keeper for me either. By the way, if you're finding this helpful, there's way more content like this on Cloudhouse. Check out our helpful classes, live drawing series, and a safe community space to explore your creativity and connect with others like you. Before I get to the one that I'm currently using, I want to stop and mention this Render one from Crescent Creative Products. This one's interesting because I was introduced to it by one of the store associates, as it's one of the only sketchbooks where you can use alcohol-based markers like Copic and not get the marker bleed through. That's pretty magical. Unfortunately, they don't make any tone paper ones, and again, I don't really like this size. So I decided to skip the Copic markers, stick to something that would work with a notebook that I do like, which is this Stillman Birn one. This is my newest and favorite notebook, and I really love the paper quality. It's quite thick. My Sakura Koi pens don't bleed through, and it has a slight grainy texture to it that I enjoy drawing on. The soft cover is sturdy enough for me to feel like I could carry it around, and overall, I've been enjoying using it. So out of these 6, if I had to pick one, I would probably stick to the Stillman Birn notebook because it has the nice tone pages, feels durable, yet light enough to carry. To be honest, these are all great options, and yet none of these sketchbooks are perfect for me. I wish there was a notebook that was like the Stillman Birn one, but lightly dotted or lightly lined. I also wish that it had the elastic closure and ribbon and back pocket that most of the other notebooks have. Am I asking for too much? Maybe I need to make this notebook for me more try. Speaking of which, another option is actually to bind your own notebook using paper that you like. There are a lot of great tutorials on this online. Some people really swear by the therapeutic practice of doing your own bookbinding for something personal like a sketchbook or journal. But let's save that for another class.
To wrap it up, here's a summary of all of the items that I've discussed. If you'd like to know where to purchase them, I'll include links for each item in the description below. I hope that was helpful. Remember, you can always find more tips and tutorials at our Mimochai Cloud House. Until next time, thanks for watching!